Hello and welcome to episode 179 of Magic Rays of Light, a podcast exploring the world of Apple TV and so much more. I'm your host, Sigmund Judge. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Devon Dundee, and I don't know if you felt your ears had been burning at all this week, but they should have been. I'm going to start this episode with a bit of a intervention.
Oh boy.
An alien intervention. I got sent a clip from a podcast that's releasing later this week from a good friend of ours, Tim Chatton. I just wanted to play it back to you and then ask you some questions.
Totally inappropriate for the environment. I don't know anything about the Alien franchise. I've never seen any of them, so I didn't use this
really
the right way.
disappointing to me to hear that.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, but I happen to be going through a Boy Meets World rewatch with. I love rewatch.
We'll no doubt talk about that at some point during the next 179 episodes of Magic Rays of Light. No interaction with the Alien franchise whatsoever. So Tim messaged me and said, "You got to sort your boy out." So let's talk about it. This is a franchise that, of course, is entering new realms this week on Disney Plus. We'll be talking about that later on in the episode when it comes to our TV app highlights for the week. But I mean, the first film came out in the 70s. There's been so many films. There must be references to the films that you've seen over and over and over again in other films, TV shows, and you wouldn't have had a clue. Is it something you've avoided, or is it something you just not got round to?
I don't think it's anything I've avoided purposefully. I mean, I don't have anything against the films. You're right. I definitely have missed out on some references, like Community like to reference Alien and Aliens and things like that quite a bit. And I could tell that there was something happening that I would be missing out on. I don't know if it's just growing up, my family didn't watch that kind of stuff, or maybe the age I was born that, it just wasn't quite right. I've always heard great things about it, and I know that it's one of those franchises that's constantly getting new iterations, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I've just never jumped aboard it. I certainly didn't mean to offend by avoiding it for so long. And yeah, I definitely recognize this is a hole in my movie watching history that I probably need to fix.
I think it's something that once you do get round to watching it, I think you're going to enjoy it. It just so happens that this is the same week that I bought tickets for my birthday to see Alien at IMAX. So I'm really looking forward to that. But the series is interesting because it's steeped in horror and sci-fi. But there's also some biblical elements to the story and tales on evolution. And there's more that's looked at in the later films controversially. And see, this is something that I'm sure will get the ire of not only Tim, but plenty of listeners to the podcast. My favourite film of the series is Prometheus because it delves into evolution. And actually, Alien Romulus was a lot of fun as well and kind of went back to its action roots. And then there's, the jump scares and some absolutely terrifying moments. After all, the first film's tagline was, "In space, no one can hear you scream." From a film lover's point of view, also, the practical effects, along with some of the ideas that are brought in, are really, really interesting. Anyway, Tim sent me a message and said, "Okay, you need to bring this up on the show." That clip was from Tim Chatton's show, Apple Vision Pros, and we'll leave a link to in the show notes. But Tim came up with a challenge alongside myself, and that is to watch at least the first Alien film on Apple Vision Pro, obviously to protect Noah, who's, got young eyes, and we don't want him walking into anything too horrific, but also in the new environment for Apple Vision Pro, and then report back to us. What do you think?
Okay, I mean, challenge has been issued. I will have to pursue that. And I guess as long as the first Alien film is available on Disney Plus or Hulu, that should be fine, because that's the only app that environment works in. But I assume it would be to coincide with the new series that's coming out.
Absolutely. Alien is a Disney franchise now, right? Because of the 20th Century Fox
Right.
buyout. But yeah, an interesting way to start things. Of course, it's not all on you, right? I don't want this to be a picking on Devon session. Sometimes I might get accused of that. It's done in jest and in good spirit. Is there a series of films that I'm missing out on that you think I should be watching in return?
Oh, that's tough, Sigmund, because you watch everything. Well,
you'd be surprised. There's some holes.
Yeah.
There's definitely some holes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the MCU is one that I have a lot of love for, and you dip in and out on, and I understand that. It's a lot to keep up with. The one that I can think of off the top of my head that maybe you haven't seen, because I don't think we've discussed it, are you caught up on the Fast and Furious franchise?
I am not caught up on the Fast and Furious franchise.
Well, that's a good one. I held off for so long on those films, and they're actually pretty good.
I watched the first two.
Okay.
And bailed. Like, it was something that was on my list. And, you know, I'm a big Ludacris fan, so to see him starring and obviously his songs are very prominent in the films. So I enjoyed that. I've not really watched the later Fast and Furious films, which I'd like to. I think there's a spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw, as well, which I never got round to watching. And they're supposedly fantastic in terms of video and audio mix as well. Apparently they really rock a home cinema. So, if not for any other reason, that is actually a great series for me to get into at some point, I think. So, yes, I will take up the challenge. How many films are there, though?
Oh, there's a lot. Because there's 10 of the original ones, plus the spin-off, plus apparently Fast 10 Part 2 is still going to be a thing at some point. So, yeah, like 12 total.
Oh.
That's a big assignment. But Alien's a pretty sprawling franchise as well, right? I mean, you got TV series and films and Alien versus Predator.
Yes. Alien versus Predator. Wow. See? You know.
I know. Yeah, I've got to get that Vision Pro on, get in the environment, and experience it for myself.
Well, with that all said and done, everything coming up on the show this week, we highlight the debut of Jason Momoa-led series Chief of War, share a couple of summer project updates, some interesting stuff going on this summer between the two of us, and we start with the much-anticipated return of Apple original comedy series Platonic. Season 2 picks up with everyone's favourite pair of best friends, Sylvia and Will, as they contend with the new midlife hurdles, including work, weddings, and partners in crisis. The duo tries their best to be each other's rock, but sometimes rocks break things.
How are we going to move this bad boy?
You get the front, I'll get the back.
That's what she said.
Booyah. You should have seen how far you flew. If you have a ring camera or something, you could go viral. Here you're turning Will into a golfer.
Yeah, he's taking lessons from my dad.
You got this, son. I know you do.
This is co-created, directed, and co-written by Nick Stoller and Francesco Del Banco, starring and executive produced by Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne, and also starring Luke McFarlane, Carla Gallo, and this season's guest stars including Aidy Bryant, Kylie Mooney, Beck Bennett, and Milo Manheim. The lovely thing about this show is, first off, that we get a beautiful recap, and I'm really happy that Apple is starting to do this just to kind of refresh us a little bit. And it's the basis for our recap because so much happened in season 1. Two friends, Will and Sylvia, get together and reunited after a long time apart. Will, at this point, has got a divorce. Sylvia has a family. Will's having these battles over his bar while Sylvia's house hunting. And so there are some really interesting juxtapositions here. Where I thought it stood out was that the show depicts adult friendship in a refreshing and funny way. And if for some reason you missed the first season but maybe dipped into Apple TV Plus later and caught the Spanish comedy drama Love You to Death and you loved that, then I think you're in for a treat with Platonic. This American comedy series, however, is really anchored by, again, Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne's on-screen chemistry, following the 2 films that they were in together, Neighbours. Maybe there's more, and if so, I need to seek it out. It's a show that's heartfelt and cutting at times, and equally, there are moments where it's so unhinged that at times you think you're watching an episode of Phineas and Ferb. And that's what I loved about season 1 and what I'm loving about season 2 as well. What is it about this show that you love?
I completely agree with you about the almost animated nature of some parts of it. And to me, it feels like a little bit of maybe like wish fulfillment. Like, what if you could go back and relive your glory days? That's kind of what Will and Sylvia are experiencing in season 1, at least. They reunite after having been friends when they were younger, and they revert back to those behaviors. And of course, they're older now, and so the reality is much less fun than you might expect, at least the next morning when you have to deal with the consequences of some of your decisions. And so, but I do think that's kind of a universal question that a lot of us have, looking back to the past. What if you could go back to those days or live more like when you were younger? And so, yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people can resonate with and something I enjoyed a lot. I also like just the plainness of the premise. The series called Platonic, so you're not having to worry about necessarily a will they, won't they situation with the main 2 characters. And I appreciate that. There was a brief moment at the very end of season 1 where I was like, oh no, are they going to betray this whole thing at the very end? And thankfully they didn't. And so I appreciate that we can take that for granted. And then, like you said, I like that it acknowledges the difficulty of friendships in middle adulthood, which is a theme I think we're seeing more and more on screen now, because it is a real problem a lot of people are facing, especially in the age of social media and just how disconnected so many people are. It's way too easy to get so just focused on your work and your family, and you miss out on those connections sometimes, and you get to a point where you look around and you're like, well, where are my friends? Where are those people that I loved and cared for and invested for so long? And so I feel like that's a very real, again, situation that a lot of people find themselves in. And this show just admits from the start that, yeah, that's really hard. And here's what one version of it could look like. And even if we don't necessarily all need to follow their example in terms of, again, some of the decisions they're making, I think the example of putting that time and investment into a friendship in adulthood, I think is a great thing to see on screen.
And I think that's maybe why it was noted in the press tour for this, that the show was originally conceived as an anthology series, but then pivoted midway through season 1 due to Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne's on-screen chemistry. It's interesting because if you look at season 1, especially how it was ending, you were seeing more screen time for some of the side characters, including Sylvia's husband and his workplace, and how his colleagues were talking about his wife's boyfriend. I thought we were going to possibly delve into a bit of an anthology to the series in season 2, because we were seeing these characters be introduced and really be given a third dimension. That doesn't seem to be the case with season 2. I kind of teased it when we were talking about the trailer. It does seem very much that Will and Sylvia are, again, the central focus, and maybe it is because nothing can compete with the chemistry that Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne have. What do you think?
Yeah, I noticed this as well with the first couple episodes of season 2. The first season, it felt like it got to a point where it hit a stride where you could spend time with other characters who you'd built a relationship with and not feel like you were missing out on that Will-Sylvia dynamic. And this season, at least the first 2 episodes, there's really no scenes without one or both of them in it. And so while we're still getting some of those side characters, it's always in relation to the main 2. And while I do feel like that makes sense on a certain level in terms of that's kind of the driving force of the series, it does to me make the world feel a little bit less lived in and more just like we're just spending time with this one relationship, and it's not the broader world that I guess we were experiencing in season 1.
I think also what's really interesting about this second season is how the relationship, whilst it hasn't changed in a lot of ways, Will now being engaged, it's as though Sylvia is going through what Will had to go through in the first season. There's that kind of insecurity about where their place is in the world, even though Sylvia has kids of her own. And it's very interesting because whilst it's done in a comedic manner, even when we've got it all figured out, our relationships and our circles and our relationships to people that are close to us, they change as those people evolve. Of course, Sylvia's still giving Will some advice. Him being engaged, having an engagement party, and then the next day letting her know that he's got a crush, only to then take her to the crush at a local eatery.
Yeah, and to further complicate that, Sylvia's also planning the wedding and the engagement party, so there's like a professional element to it too, and she's having to almost play referee between Will and his fiancée Jenna on some of their differences. But of course, I mean, she's closer to Will, and so that affects the whole thing as well. So yeah, it's a very messy situation they've gotten themselves into, just in terms of maybe with other personalities it wouldn't be such a problem, but with these two in particular and the way they interact with one another, it just makes for some hilarity and some drama. On the subject of kids, Sigmund, one of my favorite games to play when I'm watching a TV series is Where Are the Kids in any given scene? Because, you see these people out living their lives. And I mean, any TV series, it's, when you have kids involved, it does create for some plot holes unless you've got like a nanny at home or something like that. But yeah, I agree with you. I hope we get more of the kids this season, because I think that still is an important part of Sylvia's character and who she is. And I think this season, where some more of her insecurity could come from, not only with her relationship with Will, but also from her career that she started up at the end of season 1, events by Sylvia. There's a mention very early in the season about that van that we see at the end of season 1 and why it's not carrying on into season 2, and kind of whether or not what she's doing is a quote unquote real job. And so mixed in with all the interpersonal dynamics is also more about her career, which last season we talked about her giving up her law career, but now she's got this new thing she's trying, but whether or not people take it seriously, I think, is a question we're going to have to see play out.
I think what's really interesting also about this dynamic between Will and Jenna specifically is that Sylvia is trying to get in on the relationship and almost, forge a relationship of her own that doesn't involve Will with his fiancée, right? And I mean, she's very impressive, right? She's the CEO of Johnny 66, where Will is now working. So there's a lot of implications. Should Will not go through with the wedding? Do you think Sylvia and Jenna can be friends? Is that a possibility? They are so different.
They are so different, and I think what we're seeing a little bit with Jenna, at least the beginning of the season, is what we saw with Charlie last season, is a little bit of jealousy over that relationship between Will and Sylvia. And in this particular relationship, there's also an added element of Will is a very different person around Jenna than he is around Sylvia. And he tries to clean up and not curse as much, and just be a little bit more of a professional person around her. And I think Jenna recognizes that he is a little more relaxed with Sylvia. So I think that is going to be an interesting question to see throughout the season, is when you're so close to someone and they get this new romantic partner, when there can be some jealousy there, what does that dynamic look like? And can they really be friends? Or is it going to be one of those things they just have to kind of put up with each other and make nice, and Will has to manage the middle? I mean, I hope they can be friends, but I think that the path there is definitely not straightforward, at least.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, when someone changes a little bit for their partner, you worry a little bit. But I also think there's a little bit of selfishness at play, in the sense of you feel like, or you're worried that you're losing part of the person that you knew for so long when you see those changes, even though they could be positive adaptations of who they are. This is marketed as, simple, fun American comedy, but you can go deep It's very funny, though. I think this is the thing that we're maybe losing in translation when talking about this show, because it is hilarious. Who do you think this is for?
Yeah, I feel like I'm very much in the demographic for this one. I feel like this is for people who've moved past that early adulthood phase of education and settling in wherever you're going to be and starting your career. You're starting to settle into your career, establish a family routine, and now you're searching for connection and potentially a taste of youth. I feel like that's a phase of life a lot of people go through, and probably early mid 30s and moving past that. And so that's, to me, who this is going to resonate most for. It's the people who you're seeing on screen, and if you can relate to that phase of life that they're in, I feel like this is going to resonate for you a lot, because it's showing elements of that part of life that I don't know that I've seen on screen as much before, and that definitely spoke to some of the experiences that I'm having.
I'm with you, and I don't have a fear of growing up, never have done, but I've always felt like I was stuck in my 20s to a degree, just with more responsibilities. And I've never really subscribed to the idea of the clock strikes midnight on 40 and suddenly you have to adapt to being a completely different person and leave things that made you behind. And I think this show really makes people feel seen in that regard. So yeah, Platonic, its second season, returning today with its first 2 episodes on Apple TV Plus across all of your screens. It comes highly recommended, and if you've not seen the first season, well, you're in for a treat. Lots and lots to enjoy there. Let's talk about some projects. And it's funny because I think both of our projects, in some shape or form, are trying to achieve similar goals. Do we want to start with YouTube Premium and your experience with that?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I think calling it a project might be a little ambitious for what I'm doing here, but I did sign up for YouTube Premium, and the reason is very similar to something that Casey Liss was talking about on ATP recently, and that is I have a child who likes to watch videos online, and I don't want that child to be exposed to some of the weird ads that are out there. And also too, I mean, Noah has never experienced commercials before. He doesn't really comprehend why what he's watching would be interrupted by something else. And so it can be upsetting for him in those moments. And, you have to explain, we have to wait for the skip button and then we can go through it. So anyway, I've signed up for YouTube Premium Lite, which is a newer offering from YouTube that allows you to get the ad-free experience without necessarily signing up for all of the features that they offer with YouTube Premium. So there's no offline downloading, and there are ads on music. So this isn't a replacement for like Apple Music or Spotify or something like that, but that's not really what I'm looking to do with it. Really, what I want to do with it is to be able to subscribe to the channels that he likes. He's got certain ones that he's discovered usually through school, things that they play during activity time at his preschool, and then he comes home and tells us about them and wants to see them. So right now it's Danny Go that he's really into. We've also discovered Blippi, which another character I'd heard about but never experienced myself, and they're actually pretty decent videos. But so just things like that, I want him to be able to watch those, obviously in a supervised environment, but without having to deal with the ads. And so I did it on my account, YouTube Premium Lite. It's not a family thing. It's just for a single account. But honestly, for this pretty simple use case that we've got going, I think it's going to be fine for now. So I'm signed into my YouTube account on the Apple TV, on my iPad, and on my wife's iPad, so that whatever device Noah is using in the moment, obviously we try not to do it too much, but the time that he does spend there, he gets to experience it without ads, which is nice. I'm starting to enjoy the benefits as well. I don't watch a ton of YouTube. I'm not someone who just lives there, but I do watch some YouTube throughout the day, just like anybody else. And usually when I come across those videos, I'll, sit through the ad and let the person get their, however much they get for the time I spend watching the ad. But now I can know that the creators that I'm watching are getting money through my subscription, and I'm not having to sit through the ads. So it actually feels good on both ends. So I've been enjoying it too, an added benefit of basically a streaming service. I mean, it's streaming service pricing. I think it's $8 or $9 a month, and you're getting all of YouTube with no ads. So that's a pretty good trade-off, I would say. And so we've been enjoying it just in terms of not having to deal with the ads and letting him experience what he wants to. The thing that I'm running into now, and I need to think about because I don't know exactly how I'm going to navigate this, because like I said, this YouTube Premium Lite only applies to my Google account, my personal one. But for work and for freelancing, for Mac Stories things, I have different Google accounts, right, that I'm signed into, and I use Safari profiles to switch between them so that whatever context I'm in, I can be signed into the right account. And I have those tied to focus modes. When I'm at work, I'm in my work focus mode. I'm on my work Google account. When I'm working on Mac Stories stuff, I'm in my freelancing focus mode, and I'm in my Mac Stories account. I know it sounds like turtles all the way down or something like that, but in practice, it really does help. And it's much better than if you're the kind of person who signed into like 6 Google accounts in one profile and you have to switch between them up in Google's little top right toolbar there. That just drives me crazy because then you want to remove one, you have to sign out of all of them, you get signed out of one, you have to sign back in. It's a bit of a mess. So I found the profiles to help with that. But it does stink if I'm at work and I need to watch a video for work, I hit play on the YouTube video and an ad plays. I'm like, wait a second, I'm paying for this. And then I remember, but I'm signed into the wrong account. So I can either copy that link and change profiles and watch it, or usually I just put up with it and sit through the ads, even though I'm paying for ad for YouTube. So I haven't quite figured that part out yet.
So during that whole thing, my mouth was just open because I've never heard of someone attaching Google accounts to different focus modes. And wow, okay. Sometimes I feel like I'm so far behind and I'm not the techie person that I thought I was. The reality, though, is that I'm interested in YouTube Premium Lite because I don't really need all of the other stuff. Offline downloads is nice when I'm traveling, but I'm going to have a look at the monthly price. The other thing, and I know this was locked behind the premium subscription, and so I'm not sure if this carries over to Lite. Are you able to do picture-in-picture with this subscription?
I don't think so. I think that is still a full premium feature because what I've tried to do is the audio playback when you lock your phone, and that's tied in with premium as well, and that doesn't work. So yeah, I think that is still a locked feature, which is unfortunate because I would use that quite a bit. I don't think that one's included in Lite.
And in terms of Noah, do you log into the kid's profile for him, or does he know where to go for his stuff?
He's not playing anything himself. If he has the iPad, it's in guided access mode to where he can't touch anything. Usually it's actually on the TV in the living room so that we're all around, and when the video ends, we can start him a new one, or I think it will autoplay on the Apple TV from the same account. It'll just play the next video. So that's fine. It's not a kid's account. It's just my full-on YouTube account that has access to everything.
Okay, and that's cool because you can curate the playlist of what Noah is seeing and be very specific, and I think that's fantastic. That's a good tip, I think, for many new parents out there as well that maybe don't have the time and the concentration to be there the whole time, but if you've already pre-approved what the little eyes are watching, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's been a great experience so far. The only downside of it, which it doesn't affect me too terribly much because I don't actually use the YouTube algorithm much, but of course now the algorithm is completely skewed towards children's content and, mostly learning stuff, lots of ABCs and animals and children's books and things like that. So to be honest, I wasn't relying on the algorithm too much. I follow most of my YouTube channels via RSS anyway. I've been fine to turn that account over to him, but if that's a concern for you, you'll probably want to go for the family plan and get your child their own account. But for me, this simplified setup has been working really well, and I've been putting off YouTube Premium for as long as I possibly can, And of course, having a child has forced my hand there, and I'm better off for it, and very much enjoying that product.
Yeah, and you shouldn't downplay having a child as being a project, right?
Exactly.
So it's definitely a project. It's a bigger project than mine. This week, I kind of went down the accessibility rabbit hole a little bit, like yourself. We talked previously about how whilst there's lots I'm not a big fan of with the new Apple TV cinematic poster art and its implementations, the things I love are the artwork choices for top chart artwork due to their legibility and the clear integration of film or TV show categories at the bottom there. So if you look at the beta at the moment, you'll have these cinematic posters and they'll have the background art, they'll have the logo in their chosen font in white, and there'll be like a gradient for the lower third, and then below that you've got the category. So it's all very plain and simple, and actually the addition of the category there and its placement I think is a really cool way of being able to show someone what it is, because they'll know if they're in the mood for a thriller or a drama, a comedy or whatever it might be. So I love that. I wanted to bring that to Infuse and my SMB share and my Plex server. I haven't done it yet for Plex, but I have done it for my SMB share in Infuse, which basically means that I've got network attached storage, and that's how I'm accessing everything, and I'm playing it through Infuse and I'm browsing everything that way. What I decided to do was take the concept of this top chart cinematic poster art and integrate it into Infuse to make it easier for browsing for my grandparents who, unfortunately, as much as I try, the current streaming world is too overwhelming to be able to navigate for my grandparents. And so my personal media and some other rips have made their way to my server to make things a little bit easier for them. I've got some recordings that are going through a HD home run and then they're catalogued. So I'm doing everything legally, but it's made a massive difference for my grandparents. So I've done this very easily. There are shortcuts out there. There's even maybe like a website resource that if you put into Google Apple TV artwork grabber, you'll be able to find something there. But basically it's grabbing the assets from the TV app. So that's the logo, which is a PNG file, the background artwork, that's vertical. And then I put those into Procreate, which I love on the iPad. It's what I use for all of the artwork of this podcast. And I think it's like 4 layers, including a gradient layer that just covers the third to mimic what Apple do in the TV app in tvOS 26. And it's just made things a lot easier. The other thing that I'm doing with this artwork, and I haven't quite got there yet, so I'm not sharing everything just yet, but I've got a spare screen and I've put it in a vertical orientation, and I've have that tied into Home Assistant, so when something is playing in the cinema, that screen, which is in the hallway leading up to the cinema, shows what is playing, how much time is remaining, and any kind of technical aspects to it as well. And then what I want to do is also, when things aren't playing, is have like coming soon posters that are like custom art. Maybe it's just a still and then a big font with the name of what it is and when it's coming. So then when I do have guests over to watch films, they know, hey, like, can I come round to watch this this time? And I want to kind of do like a mini film club at home and locally amongst friends. So yeah, that is what I've been up to. I think they're both coming from the same point of view, right, in terms of accessibility and trying to navigate some of the issues that the modern world and, you know, the different UI and all of the different companies involved aren't able to tackle because they just don't work together, and they're they're competing factions to a degree.
Yeah, I think the other element of this that I love is customizability, really making the experience your own, which is also what I'm doing with the YouTube experience. But the way that you can take those assets and combine them in a way that is legible for you and for your family, and just makes navigating so much easier. But also, I mean, there's just that flair of like, I made this, I put this together, and that creative process that's also really satisfying. And then the way that once you have those assets, you can apply them in different ways. You can use them for your server, but you can also use them in this display, which sounds like an incredible idea. I love the idea of having a now playing display outside your theater. I've seen people with media rooms have like a chalkboard, or something like that, something very simple, but this is like the ultimate automated way of doing it. So I love this. I'm really impressed by this project. I want to go out and start looking for these assets myself and think about ways that I can use them. I do the watch history journal shortcut that logs what I'm watching every day in my journal, but I'm just relying on other sources for that poster artwork. So it might be cool to see if I could implement this in a shortcut to pull the artwork that I want and combine it with logos in the way that I want to make those images a little more customized. So you've inspired me, Sigmund. You've given me something to think about and pursue. And yeah, I think this is very cool. And I like the way you're pulling inspiration from the top charts on the Apple TV Plus row of the new TV app and the updated TV app as well, because I think those are really, really well done.
Yeah, I'm going to share the Procreate file at some point so people can just get on with it. It's all going to be marked out for you where to put each asset. And, if you've got the time and the patience, you can do the same thing as well. So, keep an eye out for that on social media later this week, probably before the weekend. So it's a weekend project for those interested. So there's that. But let's talk about apps because, Fox are launching a new app and they revealed new details, including a launch date, pricing, and lots of details for customers in the United States. What's going on with Fox?
This is a really interesting story because back in the day, Fox was one of the original partners on Hulu and owned, I believe, a third of Hulu for most of its run. But then when Disney bought Fox, they took that portion of Hulu with the company and left behind in New Fox all the TV channels. And so New Fox has not had a streaming home of their own since then. They've continued to send their content to Hulu, but there hasn't been a place that Fox can call their own. And so now they're introducing their own streaming service. It's called Fox One. And it's going to cost $19.99 per month or $199.99 per year. And it's going to include the company's news, sports, and entertainment content, including news, business, weather, sports, FS1 and FS2, Fox Deportes, the Big Ten channel, Fox local stations, and, of course, the original Fox network. Now, the company does have a couple of other streaming services, including Fox Nation and B1G+. Those will be available on the platform and can be bundled with Fox One for $24.99 per month. And the service is going to launch August 21st. So I think it's interesting to see another company entering the streaming wars this late in the game. That price seems really high compared to other streaming services, but it does include a lot of sports content that I think up to this point you would have to either pay for cable or like one of those cable over streaming services to get to. So this is going to be certainly cheaper than that if you want this in combination with your other services. But this is a really interesting move by Fox. It'll be interesting to see how that relationship with Hulu continues to play out. I watch a couple of Fox shows on Hulu every season, including The Floor, which was one of my favorites. And so I'm interested to see if they're going to leave those shows on Hulu or if they're going to end up doing like Peacock did and pulling all their stuff back to their own service. I have to imagine they'll probably do that eventually. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But yeah, a new entrant in the streaming wars coming August 21st. It's going to be Fox One.
Well, away from Fox, it's time for some Apple Originals news and releases and trailer talk, which is where we begin this week. First off, of course, we've got to mention the What's Coming in August sizzle reel, starring Chief of War, Platonic, and more. Love to see it. But one of the highlights in that sizzle reel is also Snoopy presents a summer musical in August. I thought this was already out, Devon.
I did too. It was originally announced to be coming out in July, and I think we actually covered it as such, but it ended up getting delayed at the last minute to August 15th. So now those who've been waiting to see Snoopy go to summer camp and Charlie Brown and the whole gang, you can see that on August 15th, and you can also see a full trailer for the special because that also came out this week.
Also coming in August and highlighted in the sizzle reel is Invasion, the third season of the sprawling sci-fi series where the ultimate apex aliens have finally emerged, rapidly spreading their deadly tendrils across our planet. And it will take all of the heroes that we've come to find working together, using all of their experiences and expertise to infiltrate the alien mothership and save our species. Maybe a couple of outdoor barbecues along the way, as an international cast of characters must become a team before it's too late.
The ones who have the best chance of survival are the ones who are willing to fight for something more than themselves. Maybe it's their families, their loved ones. Something bigger than survival.
Do we fight or let go?
The answers are here.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Together, we will win this war.
Created by Simon Kinberg and David Will. Devon, I gotta be honest with you, this is not a show that I have been fond of the last 2 seasons, but it's been something that I've watched. That says, this new trailer probably has me the most excited to give the show another go. But as a fan of the show, what did you think of this new trailer and what's got you excited?
Well, the first thing I thought while watching this trailer, and I don't know why it's never really struck me before, is that the fact that this is an original story. It's not based on a novel or anything that came before, which I think is kind of cool that we're still doing original alien invasion stories in that way. And, you know, that this show, from what we can tell at least, seems to have been successful on Apple TV+. The fact that it's still going so strong and seems like something they're really pushing and can get behind. And I love the way that it's overlapping with Foundation, so that as we're moving out of that fantasy sci-fi, we can move into this more, you know, grounded, gritty version. But the other thing I really thought during this trailer segment was, okay, we thought we did it in season 1. We thought we did it in season 2. This time, we're really going to beat the aliens, okay? And it feels like the series is moving towards a culmination. I don't know that this is going to be the last season. We haven't gotten official confirmation on that. But it feels like the way that they're upping the stakes, bringing the characters together, I love that they're going to be connecting those storylines more, because the past 2 seasons, they've really been spread out throughout the world and have little interactions here and there. But now we're really going to see them come together as a team. And so it feels like the start of the final chapter. Even if this isn't the final season, it feels like this is the setup for the last big battle. I am curious to see how they fill in the gaps between seasons 2 and 3, because watching the trailer, I was like, wait a second, did I miss an episode at the end of season 2, or did I miss like a whole season of this series? Because the way they ended season 2, it felt like they were setting up for the next phase to just continue on, kind of like the next moment. And now we're doing a time jump between 2 and 3, and it seems like there was some kind of victory between the seasons that they're not even going to bother covering, because, oh yeah, the aliens are coming back anyway. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. And then the other big question I have, a character who's not shown in the trailer at all, who we thought we were done with in season 1, but came back in season 2, is Casper. Where's he at, and what's going on with him? Because there was a big hanging loose thread at the end of season 2 was, you know, where do his loyalties lie and what's going to happen with him? He's been a really interesting character. All of the characters, I think, have really interesting dynamics to them, and I'm excited to see how those personalities and skills come together when they're all working together, in the same room and working towards the same goal. But, I'm rooting for humanity. Hopefully third time's a charm. We'll get it knocked out this time. But yeah, I'm excited for the next season of Invasion, and it's going to return Friday, August 22nd on Apple TV+.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Actually, you brought up a good point. Casper, played by Billy Barrett, who's having a great year this year, was in Bring Her Back, a previous Up Next pick of mine as well, and he'll return in this, and he's a lot older, how young people shoot up, and that might be a reason why we have skipped a ton as well. But something that's going to fill the gap in for me, I think, personally, is KPOPPED. This is the show where iconic music legends team up with some of the biggest names in K-pop to reimagine their greatest hits in a 8-part song battle series. There's some fascinating details behind this one, Devon. It stars Megan Thee Stallion and Psy. It's hosted by Sujong Son and is executive produced by Lionel Richie and Mikey Lee, and features Western icons including Patti LaBelle, Spice Girls Mel B and Emma Bunton, Vanilla Ice, Kesha, and Boyz II Men, paired up with K-pop acts including Billy, ITZY, and Black Swan. This looks insane. When we heard about this and it was like pitch, basic synopsis, I was like, okay. Kind of felt a little bit like My Kind of Country. That's what I was getting. And then I saw this trailer and I was like, oh no, I'm totally watching this. And I think there's going to be some fans that are going to be drawn to the service that have not given Apple TV Plus a go just yet.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, K-pop has such an international audience, and an audience that may not necessarily overlap with people who are watching things like Ted Lasso or Invasion. So this could be a great on-ramp for them. And this looks right up my alley as well. I love the concept and just the opportunity to experience songs that we know in a way that some of us may not be familiar with. I think that's awesome. And the genre, again, is just so big and popular that I think it makes a lot of sense blending these two things together. One thing in the trailer I wasn't expecting was the documentary aspects, where we're getting to see the rehearsals and them actually working on the music. I think it's going to be interesting to see Western artists learning the K-pop schedule and work ethic. That's going to be just another added element to it. But what I'm really excited about, of course, is the songs and the music and the performances, and getting to see that final product as they go on stage and perform, and then see who wins. I think that's going to be awesome. And I really hope that Apple takes it all the way and puts these on Apple Music for people to listen to after the fact. That's something I run into a lot with music competition series, that I wish they would put more of their stuff out for people to listen to later rather than just rewatching the show. So my fingers are crossed, and I've got a pretty good feeling we're going to be able to experience these K-pop versions of songs for long to come, even after the series is over.
And that's the thing. I don't want this to be a one and done. This, I think, has real legs for multiple seasons, and that's what I'm really hopeful for, because a lot of the reality-based stuff that we've seen from Apple so far has been pretty much, limited series, and nothing's returned. This, I think, they're onto something here, and maybe they've been a little bit reluctant after Planet of the Apps, which I was still a fan of, so... but yeah, K-Popped debuts globally Friday, August 29th on Apple TV Plus with all 8 episodes and across all of your screens. Going to the bigger screen now, we finally got the full trailer for Highest to Lowest, when a Titan music mogul widely known as having the best ears in the business is targeted with a ransom plot. He is jammed up in a life or death moral dilemma.
There's more to life than just making money. And the hard times will come from the good times. The hard times will come from the success. The hard times will come from the money, and the mayhem follows. So can you handle the mayhem? Can you handle the money? Can you handle the success? Can you handle the failures? Can you handle the memes? Can you handle everything that there is in between? That's the question I have for you. Can you handle it?
This is, of course, a reinterpretation of an Akira Kurosawa classic, High and Low, directed by Spike Lee and starring longtime collaborator Denzel Washington in their 5th collaboration together, written by William Allen Fox and also starring Ethan Eshadera, Jeffrey Wright, Dean Winters, John Douglas Thompson, Ice Spice, and A$AP Rocky. This is one that I think you're going to be able to get to see before me in a weird twist. We'll talk about that in a moment. But are you looking forward to this? Because my expectations were always high for this project. But some of the shots, some of the blocking just in the trailer and the edit, I'm so ready for Spike Lee's next joint.
Yeah, this looks incredible, and I think the thing that excites me most about it, probably the most obvious, is the glimpses we get at Denzel Washington's performance here. He doesn't have to go over the top to give you so much through his voice. Even, there's so much of the trailer that's just his voiceover, and I think this is like a quintessential role for him, and it makes a lot of sense for just his style, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing him perform. The style of this film, as portrayed through the trailers, just continues to grow on me each time we see more glimpses of it. I loved it the first time we saw it, but it just continues to stick with me. Something about this just already feels classic to me and feels like something that's going to live with me for a long time. And then I also loved the glimpse we get of Jeffrey Wright's role as the cab driver, and his line, "This is Jake from State Farm." That just, I love that kind of humor as well, where, it's just dead face, but, we're cracking up at the screen. So, yeah, I think there's a lot just from the trailer to love about this one, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I know that you are too.
Yeah, I'm excited for A$AP Rocky's debut. As far as I'm aware, I think it's his acting debut. He's also been announced to be starring alongside Rose Byrne in an upcoming A24 film, which saw its trailer debut this week. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. So that's another one that I'm looking forward to. Unfortunately, it looks like both A24 and Apple are struggling to find screens for the film internationally. The first screenings for the film in London are later in August, on August 26th, or some cinemas are showing it on the very same day that it makes its streaming debut. Of course, Highest to Lowest will debut in theatres, at least in the US, on August 15th, and globally on Apple TV Plus, September 5th. So, yeah, it might be that our early highlight on the film comes from you, Devon.
Well, that would be interesting. We'll just have to wait and see. Summer is one of those times that film screenings, it's hard to come across, and honestly, maybe that's a good sign for the industry that screens are hard to get right now, that there's so many films that are being sold, but of course we're rooting for those as well. So hopefully you'll get to see it sooner rather than later, but either way, we can't wait to talk about Highest to Lowest very, very soon. Of course, one other thing in the trailer I couldn't help but stare at was Denzel Washington's gold-plated beats. I love those. I have to imagine people are going to be trying to get a hold of those if they can as the film comes out. But you have to wonder what he's listening to, and maybe he's listening to some podcasts in addition to all the music that he's doing for his work. And maybe his character would be interested in the next Apple Original podcast that's coming out on Monday, August 18th. That is Unicorn Girl. Created and hosted by award-winning journalist and broadcaster Charlie Webster, the mind-bending 9-episode series follows the rise and fall of influencer and businesswoman Candace Rivera. After a messy divorce, she launched multi-million-dollar businesses and a global nonprofit, all while maintaining a flawless image to her many online besties. Rivera was a real-life unicorn, but one manic summer, the illusion shattered. Was she a visionary or just a master of deception? The full series will be available to Apple TV Plus subscribers on August 18th, while non-subscribers can listen to the first 2 episodes that day, with remaining episodes releasing weekly. This sounds like a fascinating premise for a podcast segment, and again, another story I'm not familiar with, but I do really love that Apple's continuing to invest in the original podcast space and the way that it's tied to Apple TV Plus in a way that gives you some benefits. If you're a subscriber, I think that's very cool. I'm looking forward to checking this one out just in a couple weeks.
I know tongue-in-cheekly you linked the two, but actually, looking at the synopsis for this podcast series, it might actually work hand in hand with Highest to Lowest. So we'll have to wait and see. In production news, Dark Matter Season 2 has finally wrapped filming, so hopefully not too long to wait there. And Star City, the spin-off series for All Mankind, will wrap filming later this month after what feels like an eternity of filming. I have a few talents involved in this one, so very, very much looking forward to seeing the fruits of all of their labours. Going back to, how this all begins, right? In the development stage. In development this week, Deadline have reported that Apple has ordered a limited series adaptation of Nancy Meyer's 2006 rom-com The Holiday. The series will be produced by Left Bank Pictures, with Chrissy Ducker on board as writer and executive producer, and Rob Delaney also writing. Now, the original film starred Cameron Diaz, Kate Winslet, Jude Law, and Jack Black, and followed two single women, one American and one British, who lived very different lives and then swapped their houses for the holidays and find love in the process. Now, I may have been a little bit too young when this released, but I remember seeing the names attached and thinking, okay, this is a film I need to see at the cinema. And I went, and it wasn't really for me. But older Sigmund will probably love this. The limited series is, of course, set to follow the same premise, and the search for well-known actresses to play the leading roles is currently underway. Do we have any picks? I think Julianne Moore would be great if they wanted to go for that age bracket. Maybe Sydney Sweeney. Another fantastic talent as well.
For some reason, I was thinking, let's get Dove Cameron back into Apple Originals after Schmigadoon. And I don't know who for the British actress, though. But yeah, it kind of depends on what age bracket they're going for. But I do feel like, regardless of who ends up playing these leading roles, that a Christmas rom-com feels like something that would be a great addition to the Apple TV Plus library, maybe a little bit of a wider target audience. And I haven't seen The Holiday, but I do know people who consider that, one of the classic rom-coms around the holiday season. So yeah, I think bringing back that IP in this way makes a lot of sense, and it'd be interesting to see how casting goes there.
I also think in terms of the storytelling on this, it's interesting that we're getting Chrissy Ducker in on this. Famously, I think most famously known for Killing Eve. So maybe there is a shift in perception on what we can expect with this. Interesting to see, again, films being converted into limited series once again.
Yeah, it's a trend, Sigmund, and we'll see how this one goes. In other casting news, Jack Rayner of Midsommar and The Mummy will star opposite Rachel Brosnahan in the second season of Presumed Innocent, based on Joe Murray's upcoming novel Dissection of a Murder. And the cast of Trying's fifth season continues to expand, with Celia Imrie from the Thursday Murder Club, Jimisola Ikamulu from The Paper, and Colin Morgan from Belfast coming aboard this week. I love any news about Trying's fifth season. I can't wait to see what they have in store for us, and I'm excited to see the cast continuing to fill out. In other news, Slow Horses writer and executive producer Will Smith, who won an Emmy last year for his work on the show and is nominated again this year, has announced that the show's upcoming fifth season will be his last. He did, however, hint at being interested in adapting a spin-off film or series based on McCarran's novel The Secret Hours, which I think is a bit of a prequel to Slow Horses, but, kind of tangentially, like the characters are there, but they may not necessarily be the main characters. So maybe he's not quite done with that world. But regardless, Gabby Chiop took over for Season 6, and Ben Vanstone is taking the reins for Season 7, which is set to begin filming this October in London. So the Slow Horses will march on.
Yes, they will. Let's talk about something that isn't marching on just yet. According to Matt Bellany at Puck, Apple original series I'm Glad My Mum Died has lost its director just before the start of filming. Jason Reitman was set to direct, but departed due to disagreements with Jeanette McCurdy, the co-showrunner and author of the autobiographical book the series is based on. Regarding the tone of the show, Now, due to the limited availability of series star Jennifer Aniston, the producers only have a week or two to find a new director, or the series will face indefinite suspension, and that would be incredibly sad news. But I think it's understandable, right? These things do happen in the background, and especially when it is a story that is so close. You know, it's an autobiographical story. You want to make sure that the tone represents what you want your story to be. But there is a fear, isn't there, that we end up not seeing this for many, many years to come.
Yeah, that's the fear when you go into a story like this that's so personal and, you know, so rooted in an experience that, you know, contains multitudes, that you want to make sure you're teamed up with someone who is going to tell the story in a way that you're comfortable with. And so, you know, it's understandable that these changes happen. It's just really unfortunate timing. And I've got my fingers crossed they're able to get somebody in there and aligned and ready to go in time to get the series off the ground, because it's one we're both very much looking forward to. And I would hate to see it just get caught in the mud because of timing issues. Let's move on to this week's Apple TV releases, starting today with the premiere of Platonic Season 2 and the finale of The Buccaneers, when I'm really looking forward to talking with you about next week's Sigmund and a new episode of Acapulco. Thursday, we've got this month's Apple Arcade releases, all Apple Arcade originals, including Play-Doh World, Worms Across Worlds, Let's Go Mighty Cat, and Everybody Shogi. So lots to play on Thursday.
On Friday, we see a new immersive release, Wildlife Orangutans. So cannot wait for that one, and a nice surprise there. It's been a little while since the last immersive release. For Apple TV Plus, of course, we see new episodes of Chief of War and Foundation, alongside the penultimate episode of Smoke, which is the one that I am chomping at the bit to talk about, Devon. Of course, Friday Night Baseball sees Reds versus Pirates at 6:40 p.m. Eastern, and then Astros versus Yankees at 7:05 p.m. Eastern. And we've got MOS throughout the week via MOS Season Pass. Of course, we've got the Leagues Cup coverage, which continues alongside the return of the regular MOS season. And for the person I see in Southeast London daily wearing Atlanta FC shirts and training gear, I see you. MOS really starting to infiltrate globally, I really believe for the first time, and not just because of the Messi connection now.
In terms of extras this week, we've got a lyric video from Snoopy Presents a Summer Musical, the song Best Time Ever, something to get you ready for the release of that special in a couple weeks. We've got a new strength training exercise on Apple Fitness Plus with trainer Kim and guest trainer Journey Smollett from Smoke. So cool to see her getting involved with Apple Fitness Plus, a little cross promotion for Smoke there. On Apple TV's YouTube channel, there's an interview with 28 Years Later director Danny Boyle talking about how he used the iPhone in the filming of that film. And of course, we've got the opening title sequence for this week's second highlight of the week, Apple Original Series Chief of War. Based on true events and told from a native perspective, this historical drama tells the story of the unification of the Hawaiian Islands through the eyes of Kaiana, who joins a bloody campaign to unite the warring kingdoms in order to save them from the threat of colonization.
We mean no harm.
Whoever takes these islands can control the Pacific.
Things are different since you've come back. We are stronger together.
Send a message to the world that no one will control these islands.
Starring, written, and executive produced by Jason Momoa, the series is co-created by Momoa and Thomas Pa Sibbett. The premiere episodes are directed by Justin Chon, and the series also stars Lucien Buchanan, Tamara Morrison, Te'ao Hifanaga, Cliff Curtis, Kaina Makua, and more. Sigmund, tell us a little bit about Chief of War.
Well, first off, I know we praise a lot of shows, and the term cinematic is often overused, but this is a real cinematic experience for the home and for all of the senses. And It's an incredible series that starts in an incredible way, I think. The series is introduced to us by the words that translate: our people thrive in the beauty of our islands, but we do not stand as one. We are 4 kingdoms joined by water, but we are separated by cunning chiefs and powerful gods. They keep us in a cycle of endless war. And yet, after being introduced to the Kingdom of Kauai, Kingdom of Maui, Kingdom of Kauai, and Kingdom of Hawaii, there's a hope that a powerful king can unite the kingdoms and end war after generations, except no king has arisen at the point that we join the story. And whilst this series was very specific to a moment in time that has seen very little depiction in both film and TV up to this point, I think it's a really interesting subject matter that the show goes to explore, that is not just telling this story set in the late 18th century, but is a story that sadly resonates with all of us today, with all of the war and conflicts that's going on around the world. That's really what my biggest takeaway was after watching the first 2 episodes. I guess we should probably dig into some of the historical importance of the series.
Yeah, I mean, I think I come at this from a slightly different angle as an American, and having grown up being taught about the history of Hawaii and its relationship with the United States. Of course, Hawaii is one of the 50 states of our country, but it's always been a fact that's rubbed me the wrong way, never quite sat right with me, because I know the history of how that all came to be is complicated and not necessarily something that grew out of a desire from the people of Hawaii. So this is going back before the American influence on the islands, but I think it is an important element of the history of understanding the first foreign influences as they begin to appear in the response from the islands, and how exactly those dynamics set the stage, I think, for where we are today. And so we can't really understand current issues if we don't understand the past. And so if we're trying to understand and see the world from people's point of view, and there still are issues with the status of Hawaii and just sometimes the way it's treated. And, I think a lot of people like to think of it as like this great place to go vacation, which it is, but there's a history there that is important to be understood. And I think this is an important element of it. And so I love that we're seeing this story portrayed on screen, and in a way that, like you said, it's very prestigious, very carefully crafted and well done, and something that I think is going to be palatable for people. Like, I think people are going to enjoy seeing it portrayed as we're also being educated. And I think in a lot of ways that's a really great thing for a series to do for us. I wanted to highlight just a few of the key cast and performances in the first couple of episodes. Of course, this cast is sprawling. It's covering, a lot of people across these 4 islands, very important players. But I think the main 3 players in these first couple episodes are, of course, Kaiana, played by Jason Momoa. He's a skilled warrior who wants nothing more than peace, but feels a responsibility to his heritage that leads him back to war. And that's where we meet him. He's trying to live in peace on his own, almost like self-exile, I think, is where we find him. But he quickly gets drawn back into this war that is promised to bring the prophesied king and the peace that he's supposed to bring. And the person who thinks he's going to do that is King Kahekili, played by Tamara Morrison. He's Kaiana's uncle and the would-be king of Hawaii. He forces Kaiana to help him conquer Oahu. And that's the premise for this war that he believes is going to unite the kingdoms and bring peace. And that's how he brings Kaiana in. And then the other important character we meet in episode 2 is Kaahumanu, played by Lucien Buchanan. She's the daughter of a Hawaiian father and a mother from Maui who helps Kaiana escape Kahekili and is predestined to play a key role in the history of the islands. That's another element of the series I really enjoy, is learning more about the Hawaiian mythology and their belief system. And there's this prophetess in the first couple episodes who plays a really important role, and just the elements at play in terms of this king they're all waiting for, who is predestined by a shooting star. And now they all feel like they're coming to the culmination of this prophecy. But the question is, who's that going to be and how is that going to come about? Yeah, I really enjoy the setup here. The performances so far have been excellent. I love the use of the Hawaiian language, which is something I've not had a ton of exposure to aside from, words like ohana and aloha, but actually seeing it spoken, I mean, it's a beautiful language, and getting to see these performers played out here as part of their heritage, I think is really beautiful. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far. I think, again, it's a gorgeous show. I think the plot is easy to follow. And the fact that it's telling this history of these people from their perspective, I think that's really important and a great reason to watch it.
We're talking a little bit about America's history. How much of what ended up transpiring is depicted in this series, do we know? Are there links to, I guess, Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, of like an outsider bringing himself in, then trying to erode what was there before and take over?
From what I understand about the history, it's more this story takes place about 100 years or so, or maybe a little less, before the full American influence. So really what we're seeing here is more, we see a British ship show up in the first couple episodes. And I think what we're seeing is this is the first contact of the Hawaiian Islands really with the European world and trade. And so it's setting the stage for that, but I don't think, because the timeline here is more focused on this particular portion of the history where the islands are unified sort of in response to the outside world, I don't think we're going to quite get to the American influence part, although that could make for a great sequel series. But I think this is certainly setting the stage for that and telling the roots of how Hawaii came onto the world stage.
Mm-hmm. Technically, I just thought this was fantastic. As I said, it's cinematic in scale. It's an epic. And I think, actually, going back to the intro sequence that is also shared as an extra, had a very kind of Game of Thrones touch to me that I couldn't ignore. And actually, I think this accomplishment, it feels like something that could be treated in as grand a way. When we talk about period pieces, it's normally something that I'm not particularly interested in. However, with the landscape of Hawaii and tribalism and everything kind of going back to the naturalistic way in which we came up from as a species with different groups all around the world, I found stunning, especially the opening sequence, which genuinely left my jaw dropping, and I'm sure many jaws dropping, excuse the pun, but there's a naturalistic but rich tone that really drenches this show throughout. And I think that juxtaposes against what is otherwise a brutal story, but depicted so beautifully with such care. You got the costume design from Caroline Eselin Schaefer, which is incredible. Some of the traditional garb that they're wearing is wow. Very early on in the first episode, there's a young child that's looking and dare touch it because it has such power. The original music from, I'd say, James Everingham, first and foremost, in collaboration with Hans Zimmer, who wrote the opening title music. Stunning. The editing from Mark Shiokawa and Aaron Marshall. It's fantastic. And then you've got the production design from Jean-Francis Campo, and the DOP on this project, Matthew Chung. Be sure to look out for his name in, I think, any kind of upcoming TV awards, because this is actually really, really up there for me, Chief of War, beginning with, of course, the first episode, The Chief of War. This is a truly exceptional series and a huge surprise, Devon.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And of course the comparisons to C are going to come, but I think this has already surpassed what C was doing in my mind. I think the historical element, the elements of Hawaiian culture that we're getting to be exposed to, are just incredible, and I can't wait to see this storyline continue on. I'm really happy that something like this was made and that it's going to be shared on such a global scale. I hope lots of people check it out. Just based on the first 2 episodes, I can say I already recommend people get on board with Chief of War. Its first 2 episodes are now streaming on Apple TV Plus, with new episodes each Friday throughout the season. Each week, Sigmund, you do us all a huge favor by bringing us a list of the TV app highlights that are streaming and available now or coming this week. So what have you got for us?
Well, let's start with Deal of the Day, discounted movie bundles in the TV app each day through August 11th. So for those that collect and like to add titles to their library, keep your beady eyes on that for the next few days. Otherwise, in the store, now available on PVOD, we've got Jurassic World Rebirth from director Gareth Edwards, and I truly believe a hopeful rebirth of the floundering franchise, starring this time Scarlett Johansson. Big Gareth Edwards fan, most famously behind The Creator. Then we have The Pickup on Prime Video. This is with Eddie Murphy, Pete Davidson, Ava Longoria, Keke Palmer, and Joe Roman Reigns Anawai, where a routine cash pickup takes a wild turn when 2 mismatched armoured truck drivers get ambushed by ruthless criminals. This film just looks really silly. 90 minutes of silly, and that's fine. Not everything has to be a classic. I'll just say, I'll still watch anything Eddie Murphy is attached to this day, and that's good enough reason for me. But, I've slowly come around to Pete Davidson as well. Also today, it's a Wednesday, of course, is Wednesday Season 2 on Netflix. So, a good release date for that. And on Friday, we see Ebony and Ivory coming to PVOD. This is Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder feeding each other veggie nuggets and smoking doobie woobies in a bonkers revisionist comedy where 2 musical legends gather at a Scottish cottage for a tense summit to discuss a potential collaboration that will ultimately result in the global #1 smash hit single, Ebony and Ivory. But what this is actually a comedic send-up and a reimagining based, I believe, on the preposterous lyrics of that said song, directed by Jim Hosking. So if you know his work, you'll know what to expect. On Tuesday, a completely different tone, a new documentary releases on PVOD, and that is Marlee Matlin, Not Alone Anymore. This actually very nearly was my up next pick this week. This is a documentary that sees Marlee Matlin becoming the first deaf actor to win an Academy Award for her performance in Children of a Lesser God. Then, of course, she's catapulted into the spotlight, and when that happens, she's able to challenge an industry that's unprepared for her immense talent, emerging as a trailblazing actress, author, and activist. And of course, this is for fans of Coda, in which she's starred. And I'd say fellow humans in general. Hopefully that's everyone listening. Then finally, Devon, one for you, Alien Earth Season 1, coming to Disney+.
Yeah, I do have a question, Sigmund. I know the challenge is for me to watch the original film. After that, should I dive into the series, or does it need to be watched in order, do you think?
I think you got to watch the film. Uh-huh. I don't know if this is a prequel. I think you need to watch the film. Maybe watch the first and second film, then watch Romulus, then watch this.
Okay.
That's the route I would go.
Okay.
Skip the Alien versus Predator.
What about Prometheus? Where does that fit into my watch through?
I think you can enjoy that as a standalone, in all honesty.
Cool. Okay, well, a little advice for me and anyone else who's looking to get into the Alien franchise. Of course, you can enjoy this on Apple Vision Pro in the new Alien immersive environment where you're surrounded by these storage crates containing, different alien creatures. You might just catch one skimpering around chasing you. But what gets me most about this environment is the static coming down from the ceiling. Uh-huh. That really got me in my peripheral vision one day. It scared me a little bit, but You can watch the new Alien Earth series in it, or you know what? You can watch the Boy Meets World in it too, if that's really what you want to do. It's a bit of a mismatch in terms of tone, but if you're looking for a new way to check out Disney Plus, definitely try out that environment this week.
Yeah, that is not the challenge, Devon.
I would ace that one though.
All right, what do you have for us for your up next pick this week to close out the show?
Well, we're going to stick with Disney Plus, Sigmund, with Eyes of Wakanda. It's a 4-part series from Marvel Animation following members of Wakanda's war dogs throughout history as they recover the country's artifacts. It's created and showrun by Todd Harris and developed by Ryan Coogler. I enjoyed the series a lot. Of course, I'm a big fan of Marvel, and I love any information we can get about Wakanda and their perspective on the world, and of course the technology and the history there. But what really stuck out to me about this one was the really unique animation, especially when it comes to skin tones and texture, but also like lighting and dust. It's different from, if you've watched any Marvel animation recently and it has that very comic booky look to it, this is totally different from that. And I really enjoyed it. And, Wakanda is just one of the most mysterious corners of the Marvel universe. There's so much to be learned there. And there's a lot here to enjoy, not only in terms of learning about Wakanda, but also just the Marvel universe as a whole. And, every little bit just helps build the universe a little bit more. So if you're into that kind of thing, if you want to learn more, Eyes of Wakanda is now streaming on Disney Plus, and I recommend it.
Very, very cool. Well, my up next pick this week is on the big screen, so it's a case of going to the theatres for this one, and it is Weapons, making its worldwide debut this weekend. This is described as a horror version of Paul Thomas Anderson's Memento, which has me very, very interested. I've kind of kept myself in the dark on this after seeing the initial trailers, and I added it to my highly anticipated list. This is a film that comes to us from Barbarian director Zach Cregger and stars amongst his cast Julia Garner, Joshua Brolin, Benedict Wong, Brian Tyree Henry, Austin Abrams, and more. And the synopsis reads, when all but one child from the same classroom mysteriously vanish on the same night at exactly the same time, a community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance. Thankfully, because I've purposely kept myself in the dark due to the nice twist of Cregger's previous outing, Barbarian, to be honest with you, before I knew Zach Cregger was attached, I was just anticipating whatever Zach Cregger was going to do next. Because Barbarian, I don't know if you ever got round to seeing it. It's on Disney Plus, Devon. But it starred Justin Long, of course, made famous by the I'm a Mac and I'm a PC adverts from Apple back in the day. And there's a massive, massive twist. About 40 minutes in, you think you're watching one film and it becomes a completely different story. Just flat out bonkers. So very, very much looking forward to shrieking at this at least a few times with other people, because that is the way to experience these kind of films. Go and see it with your loved ones, or go and see it by yourself, because you're never alone in the cinema. Or very rarely, at least.
Yeah, that would be a whole other experience unto itself. But either way, get to the cinema this weekend is a great idea, and we highly recommend it. Well, that's all from us this week. Of course, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it, and we'd always love to hear from you. You can contact us on social media via the links in the show notes. You can reach out via our contact form, which we'll also link in the show notes.
We'll be back next week with a look back at the Buccaneers' sophomore season, alongside all of the latest from the world of Apple TV. So until then, stay safe, watch some Apple TV, play some Apple Arcade, and have a great week.